Hello everyone, we're back for our stitch along and we're moving on to bullion knot. So I've written out my bullion knot in stitch using my lovely luminous razzle dazzle, and I'm suggesting you have a larger piece if you're wanting to fit all the different bullion knot variations around it, because there are quite a few. So what is bullion knot? Bullion knot is a raised stitch of twisted thread that lies on top of the fabric. So we're going to emerge from the fabric, we're going to pass back through the fabric, and then we're going to do a whole lot of work on the surface, and then we're going to anchor that down. Now, in terms of tips and hints, you'll want to use a needle that is relatively the same diameter or thickness from the eye down to the point where it starts to taper to the very point where obviously it does have to get pointy at the end. You also want a needle that's got a decent length to it, because we're going to be having little twists sitting around the needle, and if it's too short they'll be at risk of slipping off. So milliner's needles or straw needles are good for that purpose. They're known by both names. So I've got some that I got recently from Little Patch of Heaven, which is a quilting fabrics and supplies store in regional Victoria. She often has great sales, so I stock up on things. And they're just Sue Daly milliner's needles size 9. In the book, they're suggesting milliner's needle size 8 is what they're using, with 2 strands of embroidery floss. I've got a variety of things here. I'm starting with this thin number 12 Finca, and it's a vintage one. Finca, it would be a perle, but it's a thinner perle than other ones that I've got. But I will also show you a bit later, I'll thread this one up, and I'll show you can do it with a bigger needle as well. Where the eye of the needle is bigger, it just creates a bit more challenge for the task. So let's start with doing a stitch, a bullion knot down here. Now I just want to avoid where the knot of my letter is, because I don't want to get tangled in that. So I'm going to pop out below the B, and then I'm going to pop my needle back into the fabric and pop it out next to where I started. And I'm not going to push it all the way through. In fact, I'm just going to put it slightly to the left of where I started. Not going to push it all the way through. So I'm going to leave the eye at that end and the point tipping out. I'm using my little finger underneath the embroidery hoop to angle my needle up, and I can also pop it under it like that. And then I'm doing clockwise loops or circles around my needle, going clockwise like that, to get wraps onto my needle. Now you don't want to make it really tight, so don't make the tension tight, because it's going to be hard to pull your needle through. So I'm going to stop with that number of wraps, and then I'm going to pull my needle through, but I'm going to hold on to that little set of wraps as I do it. Just going to ease my needle out. And I'm going to hold on to that set of wraps. I'll show you the wraps in a moment. So if you can have a look there, all the little wraps are there, like a little blue worm, little blue caterpillar. Some people call it a caterpillar stitch. Particularly if you use sort of natural coloured thread, they do look like caterpillars. So I've got my little row of caterpillars. You can even see it. It's looping up from the fabric. And so that's an effect you get if you put more wraps than the length that you're covering with the loops. If you just do enough loops to cover your length, then it will be flatter against the surface. But it's quite nice to do it like this, because then you get that nice little wrappy effect. And then you can pop back in into the hole that you had at this end, and that's going to anchor it down. So you've still got that nice little loopiness to it, and then up close, might be a bit hard to see, sorry I just bumped the camera, you've got that lovely wrappy effect. So let's do another one. Where will I do it? And just do another one along here. So I'll pop up here, popping out of the fabric, going along the length of the U, somewhere there, popping our needle in, popping it out next to, you don't want to split the thread or catch on the thread, so I just pop out up next to it, pushing it through most of the way but leaving the eye of the needle still there, and then wrapping 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How does that look? So I usually push them down to sort of see. I think 10 is not enough. I want to do a few more. 11, 12, 13, 14. I reckon 14 is pretty good. So it looks like that. And again, don't pull it too tight because it'll make your job hard. And then you want to hold on to your wraps with your fingers and just ease your needle out. Just keep holding, it will come out. Early on when you're starting, you'll probably find you do tight wraps because you're just a little bit sort of not anxious about it, but you just try to get it right. And sometimes even if I'm not really concentrating, I do tight wraps because I'm just in the moment. And so then you're going to lay it flat against your fabric, and then you're going to anchor it down where you had your start. So that one was a slightly longer stitch, but I think it's probably about the same amount raised off the surface. And they just get that nice little bit of surface tension. So let's do a third one in this, and then we can try another colour and another needle. So again, popping out, going along and putting my needle back in, then popping the head of the point of my needle out next to that first point, not pushing the needle all the way through, and then starting the wrapping process. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So you can see I'm just pushing the loops down as I go. 14, 15, so let's do about the same number. At this point I just like to let the thread just sort of loosen up a bit, make sure they're sort of moving on the needle, and then pull the needle through and just keep a hold of your loops so they don't go anywhere, and you can use your finger just to help ease them down off the needle. Like I'm doing there, holding the loops while you pull the thread down and towards you. Just get them straight first and then pull it towards you like that, and then you're just going to pop back in to the fabric and anchor them down. And I've got a thread at the back catching, so let's just get rid of that one. So that's 3 little nice bullion knots. So I'll just tie that off because I think we'll do some different ones. Okay, there we go. Keep that threaded in case we need it for something else. Let's do yellow. This is just an embroidery floss for this one. And I've got, I think I've got 2 threads of this, have I? Sorry, 2 strands of this, yep. So just a regular embroidery floss. So we'll pop out where just below where the L is. We'll then pop forward. And this needle's a bit shorter than the other one and possibly a little bit thicker, so you'll get to see a different needle. Just grab some different ones out of my pin cushion. So I've popped out, going to start the wrapping clockwise. 2, 3, 4, 5. And because this needle's a bit shorter, I'm going to use my finger. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's try 12. So again, going to use my finger just to hold my little loops in place while I pull the needle up. Make sure they're all sliding off. There they are. Make sure they're nice and straight. Push them down. And even if they look a little bit whoopy as you're getting them, they'll usually just yeah, fall into line, fall into place. So there's that little one. And then let's do 3 more of these. So popping out, popping along, popping back, with the needle just popping out near where you went out at the start. And then what did I do? Was it 10? Memory like a sieve, Christine. How many have I got there? Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's do 10. You're probably all yelling at the screen going, it wasn't 10, or it was. Alas, you're not. I can't hear you, but I'll be able to hear you in the live chat. Wish you were here in my craft room with me. Be super fun. Probably be all nashing away though. We might not. Oh no, we can. I'm sure we can nasher and stitch at the same time. I'm sure we could. But my goodness, it would be like it would be a party. It'd be a sort of party that I'd actually like to be at. Lots of parties I'm just not. I'm just like, yeah, I'd rather be stitching. Aren't I tragic? Seriously tragic. Seriously tragically happy though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So again, not making your loop super tight because it'll make your job harder. Interestingly, this needle, even though it's shorter and probably not the exact type of needle, it's sliding really nicely off. It could be the thread as well. Maybe that perle just doesn't slide as much as the embroidery floss. So it's good to play around with different ones when you're practicing this. If you haven't done bullion knots before, just get yourself a selection of different needles and threads, but obviously not needles that are totally sort of thick at one end and thin at the other. So that's 3 of our little yellow ones. So again, I might tie that off. We can do some more yellows at the end, maybe. So it just puts little dashes on the back. So we always like to look at the back and see what pattern it makes. Okay, and then I've got a pale. I do the pale one next. Yeah, let's do pale. So I think again this is 2 strands of embroidery floss on a milliner's, although it's a bit bent. I think this is actually more of a beading needle, but similar theory. It's a bit bent. So we'll pop out somewhere there. I think I've gone down a little bit in my bullion knot pattern, but that's okay. We'll angle ourselves up a little bit. Now just making sure I don't skewer the knot because that will make my job hard and it will probably get a knot. There we go. So popping ourselves out. This one's a nice long needle, so I'll make the job easy. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's do 12 this time. Again, just holding on to my little column of wrappy bits while I pull the needle through. And smoothing it down against the surface. There it is. And then anchoring it down into the fabric near the hole. So let's do a few more of these. I just angle myself a bit further up the fabric. Might be good. There we go. Taking the needle back and out just to the side of, oops, if I can get my needle to do that. And then doing the wraps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Using my finger to sort of push them down. Again, not making them super tight, and then just easing the needle through. holding it while I pull the thread through, and then just making sure it's all nice and smooth and anchoring it down into the fabric. So these ones, because I've made them a little bit shorter for the length and possibly the thread's a bit thinner as well, they're not sitting up quite as much as our first ones. So it depends whether you want them to look at like little loops or to sit flatter against the surface. And you really only get to kind of work that out by experimenting with threads and sizes and lengths of stitches. So you kind of get a bit of a feel for it. So it's almost going to do a normal sort of stitch, but no, we're going to pop the needle out, but leave the eye in. So you can also, if you angle it up by sort of putting your thumb on that end, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it gets a bit slippy sometimes, and you do just need to use your finger to hold it in place. I think maybe one more. Okay, and then we're going to slide our needle through, holding onto our little column of knots, not knots, loops. Sliding it through, pushing them down. And another beautiful little set of bullion knots. Oops, caught on the embroidery hoop. Okay. I think I've got another thread threaded, so we might finish with that one rather than the yellow. There we go. And we'll keep that, and this is my final threaded piece, although you'd think it just looks like a knot of threads. It was all nicely straight before, but got caught up, and I think I've actually got a little knot up here. Let's hope it's not an actual knot, otherwise we might go back to using our yellow. I think we're okay. Actually, no, I think we've got a little knot there, so I'm just going to cut it where the knot is. That can become another piece for another time. And let's see if I can actually thread this tiny little head of, I'll just need to make it a bit straighter. There we go. That could have been very painful for you watching me thread that, but luckily. And so this is a single thread of embroidery floss, although I did say actually I was going to show you the bigger needle, but that would work exactly the same. But let's show you just with a single strand. So I'm going to pop it most of the way out, and then I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Do 16. So we've only got that one strand. So it's going to be a bit thinner, a bit finer. Got a little tangle happening here. Let's just work out what's going on, save the day. Unless I've actually tried to come through where let's just see if we can get it to work. There we go. Just had a little bit of knotting, but just give it a jiggle if you get that. All is not lost. There we go. So because I did the extra wraps, it's just given it a bit of extra fullness to it to make it similar to the others. So was that 16? Again, brain like a sieve. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I think I've made that quite tight, and that's probably why it caught before, because I was just going a bit tight. Or sometimes the thread just has little sort of loopy bits in it that might catch, even just little fibres on the thread. Let's just push that back a little bit. Feel like they're just bunching a tiny bit up there. Let's see if we can get it to go back a bit. That's better. So just massage it around a bit, get yourself happy with it before you then anchor it in place. Like that one, and then final one. And then I won't torture you with any more bullion knots, but I wanted to give you enough chance just to watch, and if you've got your piece of fabric and thread in front of you, to have a bit of a practice. Because they are, as I said, a bit intimidating to start, but they're actually, yeah, they're not bad at all. 16, sliding them off, holding on to them, pulling the thread through, keeping hold of that little column of loops, positioning them where I want them to be, checking they look the way I want them to look, and then anchoring them back in either through the same hole or as close to as possible. And there they are. Oops, sorry, I just bumped the camera. So there is our little row of bullion knots. So I can anchor that one off, and then yeah, we'll be using variations of, well, actually this knot really, to then create a range of different little designs, I guess, for the next few days. So we'll take a quick look in the book, because I know some of you like to plan a bit about where you're going to put your things. So we're going to do a rose with bullion center. So there's quite a lot of, there's 2 pages worth of instructions for that. And then we will do the Susan O'Connor rose, so another variation of rose. And then we'll do rosebuds. And then we'll do rose with a padded center. Then we will do bears. And then we'll do a bow. And then we'll do a detached chain combination, and that will be it for the bullion knots, unless in the list that Kimberly sent me we have any different variations of bullion knot. Oh, I like that one with the sunflowers. Yes, please. So that is introduction to bullion knots. Bit of a practice, and yeah, look forward to working through and creating some fun designs with it. This one will be really decorative. Take care, everyone, and thank you again for watching, and thanks for the folks that joined the chat, but just thanks to all of you for participating. It just yeah, makes my heart warm. Bye folks. Bye.